Roger, thanks for dropping by. This is called doing a Ynse. I've been waiting for enough daylight to actually film because I refuse to film in the house in the dark. Luckily this camera brightens stuff up a bit and I can do that artificially if necessary with software. But this is my first joining in with this Care Collab malarkey, which these types of projects are very useful because when you get people from various parts of the world growing the same plants, the chances are they adjust their growing accordingly. Now I would be growing this in what would be classed as a cooler climate, the same as Ynse. The likes of Fernanda and Todd will be growing it in warmer conditions. Makel's conditions probably similar to me. But it varies. But what we're all trying to do is replicate what the plant needs. And these needs vary. And the main mistake that can be made with growing this plant is, first of all, it's a kiki machine. That's actually how it grows. That's not a mistake. So if your plant's producing kikis, you're actually doing okay with it because it should do. That is its growth method. But a mistake a lot of people make is trying to treat the kikis when you're growing them on like the adult plant would need to be. That's not what we need to do. If you're growing kikis, then grow them. Don't even consider any form of winter rest. Keep them going as best you can. They may well decide to stop growing, in which case reduce your watering and everything. But the best thing to do with kikis is grow them on. And the biggest mistake I made with mine was ripping all the kikis off. Why was that a mistake then? Because that's where the strength of the plant was. That's where the green leaves were. You take all the kikis off, what's left? A load of stalks. And that whacked mine for, really did do it in. Anyway, my plant got split up. Kikis have gone to others. The main plant went off to Ynse, which he's split up since. But I think the biggest thing to avoid with this is reducing the leaf growth in any shape or form. Keep the leaves on the plant as long as possible. Now, traditionally, these are a dry winter rester. Yeah, well, not with a plant that size, they're not. Now, I've been naughty with this because I've forced it into growth earlier than it would normally have done. And I've just done that by introducing watering earlier in the year than I would normally do if it was coming out of its winter rest. And it seems to have worked because I do have new growths. And on this larger cane, we've actually got a couple of kikis starting. Yeah? Now, the one thing I have noticed that I was planning on doing but haven't got round to is, although this is classed as an epiphyte, it often is found growing on the ground, where it will form a mound, sometimes on rocky places, sometimes at the base of a tree in leaf litter. So it has a habit of growing this way, not that way. It can grow that way, yeah? But it tends to like to be flat. So even when it's up in the trees, it'll often be found on the top of a branch, not hanging off the side or hanging underneath like some of the other orchids like to be. It would also like to be in the fork where a branch meets the trunk, on that sort of flattish area. And the reason it likes to grow flat is the way it grows, which is unusual. Now we go back to the fact it's a kiki machine. Now, this cane here, with its couple of new growths, which are tiny, and yet are already starting the roots that go with that new growth. Yeah? I don't know how much light I've got. Let's see if I can focus right in on that. I can't even see what I'm doing. It really isn't light out here yet. Okay, so those tiny new growths, which are just a touch of green on the cane at the moment, have already started roots. Now, if that was a full-size cane, what would happen? These kikis are near the top of the cane. They will grow and gain weight, and they will pull that cane down, and then they will root and form new plants. They're still attached to the cane, but they form new plants. Now, if you can imagine that heading off in all directions and doing that function, that's its growth pattern. That's how it likes to grow. So these kikis are an integral part of the way this Dendrobium grows. When it can. It can't always do that, you can get canes that will hang out from a branch, the kikis form, and there's nowhere for the roots to grab hold of. So they just end up as aerial roots. But anyway, for me, this plant was kikis, nothing more. And last year they didn't do very well at all. But they managed to stay green, and they've stayed green through the winter, and we've now got new growth starting. So first thing I'm going to do is change it from that to that, yeah? And the next thing I'm going to do is, as soon as I get some, I'm going to add some live moss on here and try and remove as much of this moss as possible. Now, as they haven't firmly attached yet, I'll probably take the risk and unmount them and remount them with live moss, because although this looks green, that's algae. This is zombie moss, and it's not come back to life. And they've been on there a while, so that moss is old. Yeah, so I'm going to refresh the moss with live moss and rearrange these kikis in such a way that it can stay growing flat and stay growing like that, but in live moss, live forest moss, moss that naturally lives on trees. And the moss that lives on trees will accept less water and stay green. Yeah, because the ground moss tends to grow in very damp areas. The moss that actually grows on bark is more capable of putting up with, a day without rain perhaps. So that's why I want to get some forest moss, and I take it off of fallen trees, and then I know that it once came from an environment where bark grew. Now, as far as its natural environment, this plant gets cool, dry winters, or drier winters, and warmer, humid summers. And that humidity is important in the summer, because in the main it comes from forests that would have leaf cover during the summer. So the lightness, the brightness goes down in the summertime. There is less light for the plant in the summer than in the winter. When you're trying to get one to bloom, that change is important. Am I trying to get that to bloom? Don't be silly. It's kikis. I want growth. And I'll want growth probably next year as well. So this is a long way off even thinking about giving it a rest and trying to get it to bloom. But if you've got a mature plant that is genuinely blooming size, then you need it to treat it like a winter rester to a degree. So tail off your feeding and your watering into late autumn, and then as you get into winter, no feed really, because it won't be growing. If it's a mature plant, it will have finished by then. But that's the thing you've got to watch. If it is still growing, then it's going to need a drop of water now and again. So don't keep it absolutely bone dry. The canes will desiccate if you do. And then as you come into spring and the growth starts, you don't need the bright light anymore. So you need that bright light in the winter if you're trying to get it to bloom, and you need the drop in temperature and the reduction in watering and no feed. That'll get you your blooms. Then when you come to spring on a mature plant, it'll come back into growth. And a fair bit of that growth is probably going to be kikis. So this is one that you don't worry about the fact that it's a kiki machine. It's its natural growth pattern. I mean, you might get one that doesn't produce very many kikis. If you get growth from the base of the particular canes, in a way that's even better, because you know then that the roots are going to go straight in the media and not hang in the air. But if you're growing it on a mount, a good thing to think about is that as canes produce kikis, think about strapping them down, yeah, so that the kikis can take root. And by lying the cane down, you might actually it might even form more kikis, because it's now touching something. And that could induce extra growths on the other leaf joints. So, yeah, I mean, this is not a difficult orchid to keep, but it seems to be not an easy orchid to get up to full size if you're starting from tiny little pieces like this. Anyway, mine's coming back into growth. I'll grow it on the best I can this year, So it'll get a full growing season. It doesn't need the bright light. I'm going to grow it flat, but as soon as I see these new growths starting to produce roots in enough volume that it will make it worthwhile on the majority of them, not just the odd one or two, then I'll unmount it and put it back on some live moss, and then I shall be growing it flat from that point on. It likes it like that. Now if you grow it in a pot, then a wide, very shallow pot would do this the world of good, because that's quite like a mount if you think about it. But the last thing it will want is to be soggy in the winter if it's not growing. That'll just kill the roots, and then the plant will just degrade. So yeah, watch your watering in the winter when there's no real active growth on the mature plants. So but with kikis, if you're trying to grow kikis on, if they want to grow, then help them, keep them going. Let them grow on. And the sooner you get some decent sized canes and get some strength into the plant, the healthier it's going to be. Yeah, so that's my take on it. As I said, don't make the mistake of stripping all the kikis off thinking you're doing yourself a favour and your friends because you want to send them kikis, because what you leave behind is a barren plant with very little leaf growth, and all its strength's gone. All its ability to photosynthesize is gone off to your mates. So not the best of ideas, but yeah, it's done now, and these are the kikis I kept, and I will grow them on this year. So and we'll get them on some live moss, and I think that'll help an awful lot. I might find a different shaped mount, actually, one that's as wide as it is deep. I mean, when you're growing vertically, you tend to think of that shape as a typical mount. But if you're thinking of growing flat, then an even size all round would be good. Anyway, that's my take. List of the channels involved is in the description, plus the pop-up at the beginning. But the links in the description take you to the other videos in this care collaboration. So yeah, a nice set for this one. Quite a variety of people from lots of different parts of the world. What have we got? 3 from Europe. Is Portugal in Europe? I can't remember. Perhaps 4 from Europe then. And 1 from over in the States. So variety of environments, but this grows hot and steamy in the summer. So if you grow in a hot climate, providing you can provide some cooler air in the winter, or a considerable drop from your summer temperatures, because it's not the actual temperature in the winter that's important, it's the difference. When you're talking about winter resters, it's the drop that they need, and it needs to be a considerable drop. I mean, my growing environment, my minimum winter temperature is 14. Yeah, so that's my nighttime temperature, and I force the temperature up during the day even if it doesn't naturally want to do it. That's new. I haven't been doing that in other winters. That's new for this winter that's just finishing. And I've been taking it from 14 up to 19, so that there's a good difference between the day and night temperatures. And my summer temperatures, I get a maximum of about 28 in here. Being in the UK, the nighttime temperatures normally drop down quite naturally, and I get a good difference between the two. This grow room conservatory is not hermetically sealed, and it's certainly not that well insulated. So, in the summer, people who grow the warm orchids in the UK, where they want a minimum of 18 nighttime temperatures, they have to have heaters on all year round, because even in the summer the night temperatures can drop down below what you want. So it's a strange climate, this one. But anyway, so that's my Dendrobium loddigesii. It is a worthwhile plant to grow, providing you accommodate its natural growth pattern of producing kikis near the end of the canes, which then weigh them down when they arch over with the sheer weight, and allow those kikis to stay on the cane but to actually root and get in something. And you'll get a nice mass, a good clump, a good sort of bush-shaped plant then. And when it blooms, it will look absolutely stunning if you can produce that shape of plant. The blooms will spread over the whole plant and look absolutely wonderful. So there we go. See you next time. And as I say, I don't normally film at this time of day, but obviously this is a collaboration where all the videos need to go up in the same day, and I need to get mine posted so that it's up there and not joins the set in the as the day finishes. So we'll get it done and get it posted. See you next time. Just add this bit on the end. Yes, it's bye-bye from the mystical and magical land of Dorset. Apparently unicorns play in the garden. Cheeky punky. But look what I've just spotted. That might not look like much to you, but that's condensation on the window with a snail trail or a slug trail. So there's still one around somewhere. There's more, I suspect, than just one, but that's one that's decided to have a crawl on the window. And when they do that and the condensation's on the glass, they leave a very visible sign behind them. Sometimes, because it's nice and moist, when you come in the morning, they're still on the glass. That is their demise. They don't last long if I can see the little tykes. There's one in here somewhere. Anyway, from the mystical, magical lands of Dorset, I'll see you next time.